this hurts. Nothing to see here, please.
All right. So, from the New York Post, Colorado gay nightclub massacre shows Democrats' hypocrisy. For 3 days after the massacre, Democrats and their media allies smeared conservative opponents of Drag Queen Groomer Hour as stochastic terrorists who were to blame for the tragedy. Then, to their chagrin on Tuesday, the suspect's lawyers filed court papers saying he identifies as non-binary and uses the pronouns they, them. Suddenly, their right-wing homophobia narrative collapsed in a heap. Not that it's caused them any self-reflection. They'll just wait for the next opportunity to weaponize a tragedy. Of course, for all their emoting, they never had any genuine concern for the victims, who were just weapons to wield against their most effective opponents on the right, just as the left transformed George Floyd's death under the knee of a white cop. To erase civil war that won them votes in the 2020 election, they plan to turn the Club Q massacre into a no culture war. They are panicking because Elon Musk has dismantled the left-wing censorship regime on Twitter and propped them up so many of their dishonest narratives, so their aim is to justify a new round of censorship by pretending conservatives are provoking anti-LGBTQ violence. Of course, there was no tragedy they will not exploit. But we knew that.
Well,
we
I mean,
always knew that.
Well, we knew on Tuesday, Tuesday we covered the story originally, because what was happening. The big news was that Matt Walsh and Tim Pool were both named by name by one publication, saying they're responsible, those jerks. People are dead because of you, and their tears and they're like crying for the victims, and they're really sad, and those if only it wasn't for those evil conservatives. It was just it was brutal, and it was widespread. Everybody was doing it. It was so bad. Now, Ben Shapiro had a whole thing on his show. He was saying they're trying to throw out this narrative in lightning fast speed because they want to throw it out there before any of the facts have a chance to come in, because they want to smear this guy as a right-wing conspiracy theorist, nut job, because then that's what people will remember, right? They know how the news cycle works. The story breaks, everyone's hearing about it, it's on everyone's ears, it's trending, and that's when people are going to hear their impressions of the story, and they want people to remember, oh yeah, I heard about that story. Yeah, that was a right-wing kind of crazy, wasn't it? Oh yeah, I heard about that. That's what it was. And then later on, when the actual details come out, they'll be like, we'll cover it in page 12 and all that. Oh yeah, he actually wasn't. He was just a regular kid or something like that, and just shot it up because he's just angry with an old girlfriend or something like that. That's what they were hoping. However, that is not what happened. And they basically pulled the biggest self-own imaginable. This is like the worst case scenario for them, and it was so bad that some of the reactions were brutal. They were so funny to watch. Them they didn't know what to do with it. It was pretty fun actually to watch. Actually, you see some of the reactions, Steven? Yeah. So if you actually go to the next story, this is from the Gateway Pundit. Oh, you're doing something. I'll keep talking about it.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, no worries. So part of the thing that made this story interesting, normally if you look back at some of the tragedies previously that happened with the media. So you have the what was it? The Waukesha guy. So he ran this person in an SUV ran over an entire crowd of people. The crowd, the media was like, "Oh, let's publicize this." Then they found out it was a black man, and not just a black man, but a black supremacist, and a very outspoken president. Suddenly, that story disappeared quicker than anything. They're like, "Oh, nothing to see here." It was a van. Yeah, it was a van that ran over those people. And it was Kirby reincarnated, just magically started driving itself and ran over those people. That's what really happened here.
Yeah, because they'll never ever say and admit that a black supremacist ran them down. But you were wanting me to switch to the next story?
Yes, the Gateway Pundit. Yeah. So this was hilarious because there's two reactions here. that kind of went viral for a good reason. The first one is the yes, here, like with this interview.
Yeah.
She has a panel that she talks to. So this is when they found out, I think live on air, or at least they presented it live on air, that
the person wishes to identify as non-binary.
Non-binary. This is like the
attorneys for the accused shooter, Anderson Lee Aldrich, say in new court filings tonight that the suspect now identifies as non-binary. In a footnote to a motion asserting legal privileges, the public defenders say, quote, Anderson Aldrich is non-binary. They use they, them pronouns, and for the purposes of all formal filings will be addressed as Mix Aldrich. So in other words, not Mr. or Ms. Joining me now, CNN political commentator Errol Lewis, also back with me, Al Franken and Joe Walsh. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, that's not anything that we had heard from his background. You know, people have been looking into his background, and I don't know if anybody here is lawyers. I mean, you know, I don't know if I don't know what to say about that. I mean, that's what he's now saying.
It sounds like they're trying to prepare a defense against a hate crimes charge. That's the least of his problems, legally speaking, but it looks like they're trying to build some kind of sympathy or at least confusion on the question of whether or not this was purely motivated by hate.
So, that guy's motivated by, like, you know, horrible prejudice against trans people. He called them a his.
Mm-hmm.
Broke their own rule.
When we started the show, we got a little bit of news earlier that the attorneys for the shooter are now saying that the shooter is non-binary, and the shooter would like to use the pronouns they, them. And this is for the court in all court papers, and that's what Anderson Aldrich's attorneys are saying. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's complete ludicrous. I believe they're just saying that because they want to have the easy way out on this. That's really, really offending, especially being a transgender woman myself.
No, you're not.
That a male, which it was obvious with the mugshot, that's a man.
So are you.
That's not a non-binary person, because in no way, shape, or form could they appear as a woman the next day.
Oh, wait, I thought a woman was anyone who identifies as a woman. Oh.
Non-binary, you know, like they can't even keep their rules.
Oh, I know. It's like, well, the rules would apply to them when I say so.
Yeah. So, like, here, like, go to the Daily Wire story for this this little piece. A Daily Wire story. So at the very bottom, so they cover all the same stuff, but at the very bottom, you have obviously, like, you know, the guy who really has he's one of the biggest, most outspoken people against this. But Matt Walsh basically schools them and basically, like, you know, like, shows why they're stuck.
Yep.
In 2 tweets that he sends out.
Yeah.
So you can read.
Well, yeah, and I was basically going along the same track. Sorry, but if you're on the left, then you have no right to deny the shooter's non-binary identity. You set a precedent here, and we will hold you to it. You have to respect his identity. I don't. You do. These are your rules. Now take your medicine and shut up. You've already made it clear that if a male criminal comes out as a woman and is transferred to a woman's prison, we may not speculate that his trans identification is a ploy to gain access to female inmates. Same for women in women's locker rooms. Or same for men in women's locker rooms. Your rules are clear. All self-identities are valid and cannot be questioned ever under any circumstances. Again, your rules. You're stuck with this. The shooter is non-binary. You have no choice but to accept it. Suck it up. Grow a pair.
And it's so funny because you watch these shows and immediately they have more. They show a level of respect to a mass shooter. This is like a person. This is a person that does not deserve any sympathy, any respect, but they show respect for the shooter than they show for the victims.
Yep.
They make it all about the shooter. It's like, oh, well, the shooter, oh, they're non-binary. Now they have our, like, undying respect and admiration. Now they're the good guys.
Well, now they're just a victim of a prejudiced society.
Yep.
That's exactly how they'll phrase it.
Yeah. And they have to play along. This is the crazy thing about this. If you find I think I heard a conversation today. Somebody was saying like, what happens if you in a hospital, and you're a biological man, but you claim to be a woman, and it was Chase on Mine. Stephen Crowder was talking about you bring out this point. He's like, but he's a man biologically, but he claims to be a woman, right? Like he's transgender.
Yeah.
And they ask him like, oh, are you a man or a woman? Oh, I identify as a woman. And then what happens if a test should actually show you something, but because he's a man, the test results are totally different? Then the girl was like, oh, you ask him like, were you born a man? He's like, you can't ask that anymore. People are sued for that. People are literally sued into oblivion just for asking follow-up questions. Yep. You can't even like scrutinize their background. You just have to accept at face value. If they tell you something, it is true. End of story. Good day. It's over, right? Okay, let me put it this way. If I walked, and I don't know if this would work in Calgary because I don't think like the people are this crazy here, but in some places like California and San Francisco, New York, if a man walks into a women's bathroom, or like I walk into a YMCA, okay, and I walk in, and I go straight. I pay to get in, and I go straight to the women's locker room. No effort to change my anything, and I just walk right in, and I walk in, take off all my clothes, and go into the women's showers with adult women and teenage girls and little girls, all showering naked.
Yeah,
I can shower naked with them, no problem. What are they gonna do? They're gonna report me, and I'm gonna be like, well, I'm transgender. I identify, and this is the bathroom that I identify as.
The bathroom.
You've just created a way for a predator to walk into a bathroom, and all he has to do is say a lie. You're telling me that nobody would do that? You're telling me nobody, no creep in the history of humanity has ever broken a law like that? But that's the law. That's the rules that they want you to play by. And now they're stuck. And unfortunately, the media has gotten themselves into a mess because they played their old game. Let's throw out like this narrative before the narrative changes. And it always works for them. They throw it out. It changes. That's okay. Nobody needs to know. They just heard our side. But it changed in a terrible way. And now they all look like idiots. This blew up in their faces so bad, which is why I was so glad to see this, because this is one of the few times that the media actually self-own themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to come and go. It's going to be done pretty soon. But it was one of the few times where I'm like, you know what? It just feels good, because normally they get away with this kind of crap. But thankfully, this is one of the few times they basically embarrassed themselves.
Yep.
And, we should remember it. So remember it.
Remember it. Okay.
Remember me.
Yep. So this is normally the time of the show when we have the douche of the week intro. That does not exist right now.